When we look at the long history of human thought, few traditions have gone as deep into the question of what reality truly is as Buddhism. From the early Pali Canon to the Mahayana Sutra, Buddhist philosophy constantly reminds us that nothing exists in isolation. Every form, thought, and being is woven into an ever-shifting web of relations. The Buddha expressed this through the teaching of dependent origination, that all things arise because of their conditions. A flower blooms not by itself, but through sunlight, soil, water, and time. And when those conditions fade, the flower too passes away. In short, existence is co-arising, not self-existing. Now, inner ontology begins from a similar intuition, but gives it a new mathematical and ontological structure. In I.O., the basic constituents of reality are called IOIs, short for inner instincts. They are not particles or waves, not even things in the ordinary sense. They are pre-differentiated entities before inside and outside, self and world have been separated. When IOIs interact, they form inner entanglements, from which direction, form, and structure begin to emerge. If Buddhist philosophy sees emptiness as the absence of independent essence, I.O. interprets this as the indistinct base state, the IOI field, where all differentiation remains latent but real. In that sense, emptiness is not nothingness, but relational fullness, the same insight that I.O. expresses through entanglement. You can think of it this way. When you perceive the world, you are not a detached observer looking at objects out there. You are part of a mutual entanglement. Your mind and the world co-arise in perception. This echoes both Buddhist mindfulness and I.O.'s view that the act of relation is the act of being. So, while Buddhism teaches that form is emptiness and emptiness is form, I.O. adds a modern voice. Form emerges from the dynamic balance of inward and outward processes. What in physics might resemble an oscillation, and in cognition a dialogue between perception and participation. Thus, the ancient Buddhist insight of interdependence finds its contemporary echo in I.O.'s relational field, a bridge between contemplative wisdom and scientific ontology. Buddhist philosophy begins with a radical insight that nothing in the universe exists by itself. When Siddhartha, the Buddhist Buddha, awakened beneath the Bodhi tree around the 5th century BCE, what he realized was not a new religion, but a new way of seeing reality. He saw that everything we call a thing, a mountain, a thought, a feeling, even the self, is not an isolated object, but a process, a continuous unfolding of causes and conditions. In this view, permanence is an illusion, and independence is a misunderstanding. The idea of emptiness lies at the heart of this worldview. It doesn't mean that things are hollow or meaningless. It means they have no fixed essence. Take a simple example, a wave on the ocean. We can point to it and call it a wave, yet it has no independent reality apart from the water, the wind, and gravity that shape it. When those conditions change, the wave disappears, but the water remains. Likewise, every phenomenon, your body, your emotions, your ideas, exists only through countless interactions that sustain it. The philosopher Nagarjuna, in his Mullammar Kakalika explored this idea through precise logical reasoning. He demonstrated that if you assume anything has its own svabhava, or intrinsic independent nature, you end up in contradiction. A cause cannot produce an effect if it is entirely self-contained. Thus, what we call existence is a relational event, not a fixed essence. To express this more clearly, Buddhism speaks of dependent origination. This being that becomes. Everything that exists does so because something else makes it possible. A tree depends on soil, rain, sunlight, and time, just as your thoughts depend on language, memory, and possession. In the Buddha's teaching, this principle explains not only the cosmos, but also the human condition. Suffering arises from certain mental and existential conditions, desire, attachment, ignorance, and it ceases when those conditions are understood and released. In that sense, dependent origination is both a metaphysical and a psychological law. When viewed this way, Buddhism does not describe a world of separate things, but a world of mutual becoming. Reality is an intricate network of causes and effects, constantly transforming itself. There is no ultimate substance behind it all, only the continuous play of relations. This view sets the stage for a deep resonance with inner ontology. For if Buddhism sees phenomena as empty of self-nature and arising through dependence, I ought to begin with indistinct relational units. Entities that exist only through interaction. Both frameworks tells us being is not what is, but how it relates. In Buddhism, reality is not a solid structure, but a living movement, a ceaseless transformation. This insight is captured in two interwoven principles, impermanence and no-self. Together, they dissolve the illusion of permanence that the human mind so desperately clings to. Impermanence. Everything that comes into being will inevitably pass away. This isn't just a moral teaching. It's an ontological fact. All compounded things, from stars and mountains to emotions and thoughts, exist only through temporary configurations of conditions. Imagine a candle flame. It looks steady, yet every moment it's consuming wax and air, transforming energy into light. The flame we see now isn't the same as a second ago. It's a continuous renewal. In the same way, our bodies are in constant flux. Cells die and are replaced, memories shift, desires fade and return. To see this clearly is to loosen the grip of attachment, because we realize that there is nothing in the universe that stands still long enough to be possessed. The Buddha called impermanence one of the three marks of existence, alongside suffering and non-self. Recognizing impermanence does not lead to despair. It leads to wisdom, because when everything changes, every moment also holds the potential for renewal, insight, and liberation. If everything is impermanent, then what about the I? What about the self that seems to experience continuity? Buddhism answers, the self too is not a fixed essence, but a bundle of processes. The Buddha described 5 aggregates: form, sensation, perception, and mental formations, and consciousness. Together, they create the appearance of a person, just as the continuous frames of a movie create the illusion of motion. But none of these aggregates, not even consciousness, remains identical from one moment to the next. The I is a convenient label, a useful fiction for communication, but not an ultimate reality. We don't have a self, we perform one, moment by moment, in response to conditions. Modern cognitive science and physics are beginning to echo this insight. Recent studies in quantum cognition, such as those published in Frontiers in Psychology in 2025, suggest that our mental states behave less like fixed points and more like superposed relational networks. Just as particles in quantum entanglement have no independent properties until measured through relation, our thoughts and identities gain meaning only through interaction with others, with context, with the world. In this way, the Buddhist doctrine of no-self finds a remarkable parallel in the relational models emerging in modern science. Both imply that what we call the individual is not a closed container of existence, but an open node in a field of interdependence. So, when Buddhism teaches that there is no unchanging self, it's not denying its appearance, it's reframing it. It's saying the self is a verb, not a noun, a rhythm, not a core. And here again, the resonance with inner ontology becomes clear. What Buddhism calls anatta, Io describes as the indistinct flow of IOIs, where identity arises not from separation, but from participation, not from being something, but from relating through everything. IO begins with a simple yet profound proposition that reality itself is not made of static things, but of relational directions, movements of inwardness and outwardness that generate everything from matter to mind. Rather than starting with particles, fluids, or substances, IO begins with the relations that makes such distinctions possible. At the foundation are IOIs. They are pre-categorical entities. The state before inside and outside, self and world, are even distinguished. In mathematical form, they can be written as a kind of superposition state, omega, representing the balance of two directional potentials. Inward, symbolizing cohesion, integration, and whole being. Outward, symbolizing differentiation, expansion, and part becoming. An IOI doesn't contain these two aspects. It is their coexistence. In this sense, IOIs are not particles, not waves, but ontological generators. The source from which direction, structure, and identity emerge when relation occurs. You might imagine them as the zero point of being, not nothingness, but a pregnant indistinction. The way a seed holds both root and stem before it unfolds. When IOIs interact, they form inner entanglement. This is the dynamic field in which reality differentiates itself. Through these recursive entanglements, symmetry breaks, and from that breaking, structure appears. In physical terms, IO gives rise to space-time, matter, and even the governing laws that describe them. Space can be seen as the outward projection of relation, time as the inward recursion of coherence. Every dimension, every form, every quantum fluctuation is at its root a rhythm of inner exchange. Just as quantum entanglement links particles across space, IO describes an ontological entanglement, one that doesn't just connect entities, but creates them in the act of relating. Inward outward rhythms. Inward and outward modes pulse through the universe in generative rhythm. Inward rhythms bring coherence, the gravitational tendency for things to unify, to hold together. Outward rhythms bring dispersion, the expansive drive seen in cosmic acceleration or in the differentiation of biological forms. Every form, from a galaxy to a human thought, arises as a temporary balance in this oscillation. It is precisely because these rhythms never settle that impermanence becomes the law of the cosmos. Change isn't an accident. It is the heartbeat of being. Emergence. Within this dynamic field, the self is not a pre-given essence, but an emergent pattern, a local coherence in the vast sea of IOE. Just as a whirlpool appears stable while being made entirely of moving water, the self arises as a rhythmic configuration of relational flows. Consciousness in IO is modeled as balance modulation, a continuous shifting of inner balance across a 4x4 matrix of relational directions. Qualia, the felt qualities of its appearance, are thus seen as directional phase shifts in this matrix. Each sensation, thought, or emotion corresponds to a unique pattern in the relational field. From this standpoint, what physics calls quantum decoherence, the process through which possibilities become realized outcomes, is not mere loss of information. It is a productive asymmetry. The moment when an indistinct relation differentiates into the tangible fabric of experience. Through these layers, from IOIs to IOEs, from rhythm to self, IO offers a unified view where physics, cosmology, and consciousness share a single generative principle. Existence itself is the continual play between inward coherence and outward differentiation. At the heart of both Buddhism and IO lies at a profound realization that what we call reality does not rest on solid, independent things, but on relations without inherent essence. In Buddhism, this insight is called emptiness. In IO, it is expressed through inner instincts, or IOIs. Let's start with the Buddhist view. Emptiness doesn't mean that things doesn't exist. It means that they don't exist on their own. A famous example from Nagarjuna Muramataya Makarika is the chariot. If you take away its wheels, axles, and frame, where is the chariot? The word chariot is a convenient label for the arrangement of parts, but there is no chariotness existing by itself. Every phenomenon, like the chariot, depends on conditions. Its reality is relational, not self-contained. Now, IO takes this principle and gives it an ontological and mathematical form. In IO, before there is any distinction between this and that, in and out, or even observer and observed, there are IOIs. They exist in a kind of pre-dual state, a superposition that holds both inward and outward potentials at once. They have no fixed identity. They are not particles or substances, but the ontological field of possibility from which relation can emerge. You can imagine it like this. Before a wave rises, the ocean is already full of potential motion, yet that motion is directionless, indistinct. Only when the wave takes shape do we say this is a wave, and that is the sea. In IO eyes are that ocean indistinction. The field before any wave of differentiation has appeared. In Buddhism, emptiness reveals that everything we name and categorize is empty of inherent self-nature. In IO, IOIs represent the same insight ontologically. They are pre-categorical entities that only become meaningful through interaction, through inner entanglement. Just as a chariot is empty of chariotness, an IOI is empty of thingness. It only becomes something, space, energy, or self, when entangled in the relational process that gives rise to the world. So, in both frameworks, the ultimate ground of being is not a thing, but a relation, a field of mutual arising that precedes all opposites. Emptiness and IOIs both point to this same insight, that existence is not built upon essence, but upon indistinct interdependence. In Buddhism, one of the deepest insights into the nature of existence is dependent origination. It tells us that nothing exists by itself. Everything arises because of conditions, and when those conditions change, so too does what depends on them. In the Buddha's words, this being that becomes, this not being that does not become. This is not just a statement about cause and effect. It's a description of the very fabric of reality as a living web of interdependence. Imagine a candle flame again. The flame exists only because of wax, air, and the match that lit it. If any of these conditions disappear, the flame vanishes. It's not that the flame was something and then became nothing. It was never independent to begin with. It was always a relation, a temporary harmony of causes. Buddhism extends this principle to everything, including our own minds. Ignorance gives rise to mental formations, which in turn condition consciousness, perception, craving, and so on. The entire chain of experience unfolds through mutual dependence. Break the chain at any link, and the illusion of a fixed self dissolves. Now, IO expresses this same principle in ontological and physical terms through inner entanglement. Where Buddhism speaks of conditional arising, IO speaks of entangled becoming. When two or more IOIs interact, their mutual relation, their IOE, gives rise to structure, form, and even the laws that govern them. There are no independent entities within IO, only dynamic relations that continuously generate one another. Think of IOE as a field of mutual creation. Each relational act both expresses and redefines the others. Just as dependent origination means there is no first cause, IO means there is no ultimate particle or substance, only recursive entanglement. For example, what we perceive as a particle in physics is, in IO, a localized stabilization of IO is, a rhythm in the relational field. And what we perceive as consciousness is another kind of stabilization, an inwardly coherent pattern of entanglement. In this way, IO provides a formal structure to what Buddhism intuited experientially, that the world is not made of things but through relations. Pradhyaya Samamutpada and IOE both reject the idea of isolated existence and replace it with a logic of emergence, where each thing exists only because everything else does. So, both traditions converge on one vision. The cosmos is not a collection of objects, but a living network of co-arising, a web that is continuously weaving itself from the threads of interaction. In Buddhism, impermanence is one of the most fundamental insights into reality. Everything that arises, from stars to trees, from thoughts to emotions, is transient, constantly changing and dissolving. Nothing remains fixed, nothing endures forever. This understanding is not meant to create despair, but to release attachment to what is inherently unstable. Imagine a sandcastle on the beach. For a moment, it has shape and structure, but waves, wind, and shifting grains constantly reshape it. The castle exists only in relation to these forces, and the moment any change occurs, it ceases to be the same. This is the essence of impermanence. Forms are temporary gatherings, never ultimate entities. In IO, a very similar principle unfolds through inner rhythms. The IOI field pulses with inward and outward tendencies. Inward modes fostering cohesion, outward modes driving differentiation. When these dynamic rhythms come together, a stable pattern emerges. A particle, a galaxy, a coherent thought. But these forms are never permanent. When resonance shifts, when the balance of inward and outward changes, the pattern dissolves back into the relational field, ready to reconfigure. Think of it like a musical chord. The chord exists as long as all notes resonate together. Strike a long note, and the harmony changes. The chord, as you knew it, disappears. Similarly, in I/O, every form is a temporary entanglement in continuous modulation. This perspective mirrors Buddhist impermanence beautifully. Just as Anitya teaches that attachment to a fixed self leads to suffering, I/O shows that forms, even what we call self or consciousness, are emergent, ephemeral patterns. They arise from relational coherence, persist for a time, and dissolve when that coherence shifts. In both frameworks, the lesson is the same. The world is process, not substance. Being is rhythm, not static identity. Impermanence in Buddhism and inner rhythms in I/O both reveals that stability is a temporary dance within a field of ongoing interaction. In Buddhism, one of the most transformative insights is the doctrine of no-self. It tells us that the I, the sense of a permanent, unchanging self, is an illusion. What we call a person is actually a bundle of aggregates, form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Each of these arises dependently, interacts with the others, and dissolves over time. The self is not a fixed entity. It is a temporary, conventional coherence among changing processes. In I/O, the picture is remarkably similar. The self emerges as a pattern within the I/O field, a localized coherence of inner indistinct interacting. It is not inherent, not a substance underlying experience. Just as in Buddhism, the aggregates are transient and interdependent, I/O models the self as a dynamic pattern of balance modulations, constantly forming and dissolving. Identity in both views is relational. It exists through interaction, not as an isolated thing. To illustrate, imagine a whirlpool in a river. You might call it a thing, but it is not a solid object. It persists only because of the movement of water around it. Change the flow, and the whirlpool disappears. In the same way, consciousness and selfhood in I/O exist as emergent coherence in the ongoing flow of I/Os, and vanish when the relational pattern shifts. Both frameworks also emphasize balance and non-duality. Buddhism's middle way avoids the extremes of eternalism, thinking the self is fixed, and nihilism, thinking nothing exists. Similarly, I/O avoids extremes between substance and process, inward and outward, stability and flux. The self is neither an unchanging essence nor a meaningless void. It is a transient relational pattern arising from the dance of the field. In essence, Buddhism's Anatman and IO's emergent self converge on the same less. Identity is not given. It is co-created through relation, flexible, impermanent, and deeply interdependent. While Buddhism and IO share deep structural insights about reality, they diverge in purpose and approach. Buddhism is soteriological. Its ultimate aim is the cessation of dukkha, suffering, and the liberation of sentient beings. It is practical and ethical. The Noble Eightfold Path, right view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration provides concrete guidance for transforming the mind and life. Here, philosophy is inseparable from practice. Understanding emptiness while impermanence is not just theoretical, it is a tool for liberation. By contrast, IO is descriptive and formal. Its goal is to model reality as a generative relational process. IO studies how forms, space-time, and consciousness emerge from the interaction of IOIs through IOE. It provides a framework and mathematical language for understanding relational structures, rather than prescribing ethical behavior. That said, IO is not indifferent to harmony. Optimal inner ratios, a balance of inward cohesion and outward expansion, imply a form of systemic harmony. While it does not instruct humans in morality or meditation, the ontology itself suggests that well-balanced relational patterns tend to produce stability, coherence, and emergent order. In short, Buddhism is ethically and spiritually motivated, aiming at liberation. IO is analytically and scientifically motivated, aiming at descriptive clarity of relational emergence. One teaches how to live wisely, the other teaches how reality organizes itself, yet both converge on the insight that existence is relational, dynamic, and interdependent. Another key difference between Buddhism and IO lies in how each handles duality. In Buddhism, especially in Madhyamaka philosophy, the ultimate insight transcends all dualities. Through reasoning like the Tetraleman, Nagarjuna demonstrates that phenomena are neither this nor that, neither both nor neither. This method avoids reifying opposites, showing that distinctions such as self-other, existence, non-existence, or birth, death are conventional, not ultimate. The goal is not dual realization, where the mind perceives reality directly, free from conceptual fixation. IO, by contrast, begins with a directional duality, inward and outward potentials. IO is pre-categorical, but they already encode two tendencies, inward cohesion and outward differentiation. These are not fixed identities, but superposed potentials that manifest through IOE. The duality is generative. It derives structure, forms, and consciousness. Here lies a critical point of divergence. While IO's duality is productive, it might be seen as reifying what Buddhism emphasizes, introducing a conceptual polarity where Buddhism seeks to dissolve it. In other words, IO uses duality as a creative engine, whereas Buddhism seeks to show that all dualities are ultimately empty of inherent reality. Think of a spinning coin. Buddhism asks us to see that heads and tails are temporary labels. The coin's motion is one continuous process. IO sees the coin's spin as a dynamic interplay of two directions, inward and outward, a pattern that produces observable outcomes. Both approaches recognize relational movement, but they frame it differently. One to dissolve attachment, the other to explain emergence. In short, Buddhism transcends duality, revealing non-dual insight. IO embraces duality as a relational principle, using it to generate the structures of reality. Understanding this distinction helps clarify the strengths and limitations of each approach when comparing them side by side. The final major contrast between Buddhism and IO concerns their ultimate aim. In Buddhism, the highest goal is nirvana, the unconditional freedom from suffering and cyclic existence. It is a state beyond birth and death, beyond attachment and aversion, achieved through insight, ethical practice, and meditative cultivation. Here, philosophy and practice are inseparable. Understanding reality's relational nature directly transforms experience, leading to liberation. IO, on the other hand, is oriented toward unification of knowledge. It seeks to bridge physics, cosmology, and consciousness, providing a formal framework for relational emergence. There is no explicit soteriological goal. IO does not prescribe a path to ethical liberation. Its aim is descriptive and explanatory, not prescriptive. Yet, critics and emerging perspectives in 2025 suggest intriguing possibilities. For example, balance harmony. The balance of inward and outward potentials could be interpreted as a form of relational liberation, a reduction of systemic dissonance, optimal alignment of relational patterns, and emergent stability. In other words, even without ethical commandments, IO implicitly supports conditions for coherence and well-being, paralleling some functional aspects of nirvana. Importantly, IO avoids the pitfall of reifying dualities. Inward and outward tendencies are emergent, not absolute entities. They appear, interact, and dissolve, echoing the Buddhist insight of emptiness, that no structure exists independently or permanently. So, while Buddhism aims at freedom from suffering, IO aims at clarity in understanding and modeling the emergence of reality. Both converge in emphasizing relationality and impermanence, yet their endpoints differ, one practical and transformative, the other analytical and integrative. At this stage, we can see how IO formalizes and extends Buddhist insights into a structured generative framework. First, consider emptiness. In Buddhism, emptiness shows that phenomena lack independent existence. IO captures this through inward instinct, the pre-categorical ground where nothing is fixed, yet everything is possible. Just as emptiness is the relational field in which experience arises, IO is the ontological matrix from which structure emerges. Next, dependent origination finds its analog in inner entanglement. Phenomena arise not independently but conditionally. In IO is interact recursively, generating patterns, structures, and even laws of physics. The relational web of Buddhism becomes mathematically expressible in IO as dynamic entanglement networks. Impermanence and no-self translate naturally into inner rhythms and emergent patterns. Forms, identity, and consciousness are temporary resonances in the IO field, arising, persisting, and dissolving according to the balance of inward and outward potentials. Attachment to fixed forms or egoic identity dissolves when we view them as patterns rather than absolutes. This synthesis also opens practical implications. Buddhist meditation can be interpreted through IO as inward resonance optimization. concentration, and mindfulness practices enhance the cohesion of inward potentials, aligning mental patterns and reducing cognitive dissonance. From a systematic perspective, ethical and contemplative cultivation may be seen as tuning the balance matrix, promoting stability, coherence, and relational harmony, an ontological bridge between practice and formal modeling. In short, IO does not replace Buddhist practice, but formalized its insights, offering a mathematical and conceptual lens through which relational phenomena, consciousness, and the dynamics of self can be understood. It provides a language where ancient wisdom meets modern science, where emptiness, impermanence, and non-self are not just philosophical abstractions, but measurable, emergent patterns in a directional field. Both Buddhism and inner ontology offer fresh perspectives on the hard problem of consciousness. The question of how subjective experience arises from physical reality. In Buddhism, consciousness is understood as interdependent, arising through the dynamic interplay of the mind's aggregate. Experience is relational, not localized in a permanent self. Awareness emerges in the field of conditions, a continuously co-arising process. Meditation and ethical practice refine this interplay, making the relational structure of mind directly perceivable. IO approaches consciousness from a formal, generative standpoint. Consciousness emerges from inward resonance patterns within the IO field. The self is a transient configuration of IOIs, dynamically modulated through their inward and outward potentials. In this way, experience is both emergent and directional, yet non-substantial, echoing the Buddhist no-self insight. Recent work in quantum cognition strengthens this bridge. Quantum entanglement is conceptually analogous to Pratitya Samabhutapata. Just as mental phenomena arise interdependently, IOIs in entanglement gives rise to coherent patterns of awareness. In both views, mind is non-local and relational, not reducible to isolated components. Experience arises through entangled interactions, whether interpreted phenomenologically or mathematically. In short, Buddhism and IO converge on a radical insight. Consciousness is a field of emergent relations, not a fixed substance, where Buddhism provides a practical, contemplative map. IO provides a formal, predictive scaffold linking ancient insight with modern cognitive science. Buddhism teaches that ethical behavior flows naturally from insight into interdependence. Compassion arises because we recognize that the welfare of others is inseparable from our own. Suffering is not an isolated experience. It is entangled with the conditions and actions of all beings. Ethics in this sense is relational and responsive, grounded in the very structure of reality. In our ontology provides a formal framework for this insight. Social systems, communities, and even neural networks can be modeled as IOE networks, dynamic webs of inner instinct interactions. Just as individual IOIs contribute to emergent structures, individual actions in society shape collective patterns. Optimal balance alignment, balancing inward cohesion and outward differentiation, promotes stability, cooperation, and emergent well-being. This opens exciting possibilities. IO allows us to translate ethical principles into testable predictive models. For example, neuroscientific studies of balance and emotional resonance could quantify how relational alignment supports social harmony, mental health, or collective decision-making. Ethics becomes not just prescriptive guidance, but observable dynamics of relational coherence. In this way, IO complements Buddhist practice. It formalized the logic of interdependence, showing how compassion, cooperation, and relational insight can be quantified, modeled, and optimized. Both systems remind us that morality is not abstract, but emerges from the network of relations that constitute reality itself. As we reach the conclusion of this exploration, it becomes clear that Buddhism and IO converge on a profound insight. Reality is relational, emergent, and dynamic. Neither framework treats the world as a collection of isolated, permanent entities. Instead, both emphasize interdependence, impermanence, and the co-arising of phenomena. IO provides a scientific formalization of Buddhist ontology. It translates intuitive insights about emptiness, dependent origination, impermanence, and non-self into mathematical and conceptual structures. IOIs, IOE networks, and rhythmic entanglement. Through this lens, ancient wisdom gains quantitative depth, and phenomena like consciousness, social pattern, or emergent forms can be modeled and studied rigorously. Conversely, Buddhism brings superior logical and ethical wisdom to IO. While IO describes emergence, it can also inform ethical and contemplative practices through balanced harmonization and relational coherence, echoing Buddhist compassion and insight. The bridge is mutual. Science gains perspective, philosophy gains precision, and practical ethics gain a formal foundation. Looking forward, future research avenues are exciting. For example, could nirvana be conceptualized as a zero entropy state of IOE? A condition of maximal coherence and minimal relational dissonance? Could this formalization be tested through quantum cognition experiments or computational models of consciousness? These questions invite a synergy of empirical science and contemplative insight, opening the door to a new era of integrative understanding. In essence, this synthesis shows that ancient and modern, contemplative and formal, philosophical and scientific approaches are not in conflict, but can illuminate each other, providing a richer, more contemplative picture of reality and consciousness.